Hey guys, I'm just gonna film this short video. It's about our statistics class, and this covers question 15 in assignment 8-1, the confidence interval for means. So you can see I've kind of got a lot on my screen, and I've moved the question here over into Excel. So this would have been the data set, but I've just moved it into Excel and sort of formatted it nicely. And I've cut out a lot from this question. It's actually quite a long question. And there's some more parts that ask you to interpret graphs, which I mostly haven't included. I think you can figure those parts out on your own. I'm really just going to go through the math. And this is the formula that we're going to use to find our lower and upper confidence intervals. And I've kind of got it set up here in two parts. This part here is going to calculate the Z score of A alpha divided by 2. And this side over here is going to calculate sigma divided by n. And I'm going to go through how we find each variable and what each variable means. I've also got the Spiders Georg mem up here because it talks about outliers, and I thought it was funny. So let's just jump in and we'll start pulling out information from our question. So the very first thing we're told is we need a 90% confidence interval. So we can just enter that. That's what they want, 90%. Next, we're told sigma, 40 months, the standard deviation. We can enter 40. We know there are 20 people in our sample. That part of the question is cut out, which is sort of why I added the inmate numbers. But you can see there's 20 total inmates. So our n is going to be 20. Now we need to find out the mean. And to do that, we're going to take an average of all these numbers. So we're going to press equals here, average. We're going to select this column, close our bracket, close the bracket, and we're going to get 291.3. And I did have some trouble with the rounding on this question. So I chose not to enter the actual, like this link the cell. Instead, I chose to enter it in the square manually as 291.3. That's why I didn't just have the average linked to the mean up here. So now that we have these four numbers, this is actually everything we need to do to finish out our equation. So we're just going to kind of go left to right, just like we're reading it, and do it one part at a time. So the very first thing we need to do for this equation is we need to figure out the value of Z alpha divided by 2. So alpha is the amount remaining of our confidence interval. So if we have a confidence interval of 90, our alpha is going to be 10%. So we can just write that as this is equal to 1 minus our confidence interval. And this is just 10% expressed as a decimal. Then we divide that number by 2. So we're going to press equals our alpha and simply just divide it by 2. And we're going to get, well, 5% expressed as a decimal. Now we need to find the Z score for the value of Z alpha 2. And to do that, we're going to press equals. We're going to start typing norm. And we're looking for norm.s.inv. And we can just double click to complete this. Now our probability is going to be our confidence level plus alpha divided by 2. Close our bracket. And we're going to get 1.64. And if you watched any of the teacher's videos, you'll see that matches up with a special number. So in theory, this variable here, all this in red, is equal to 1.64 in this case. Now we're going to figure out this next part, sigma divided by the square root of n. So first, let's just figure out what the square root of n is. We can press equals, SQ square root, double click to complete, and take the square root of 20. Now, I do happen to just have this set up to not show a lot of decimals, but there are actually, the square root of 20 is not that nice a number, because as you know, the square root of 16 is actually 4. So if we press copy and we paste special down here, you're going to see what that actual value is. And it is quite, well, not a large number, but it does have a large number of decimals. But just to make it neat and clean, I've formatted it just as the one number. So now we can just finish part 2. We're going to press equals. We're going to divide sigma, or 40, by the square root of 20. And we're going to see that that value is equal to 8.944. And if you think about it, that's this variable. So what our margin of error is going to be is our margin of error is just going to be this variable equal to this times this variable equal to this. So we can just press equals, select this, and multiply it by our other variable, and we'll get 14.71. So if you think about it, these are going to be the bands on under our standard normal curve. And since we want to be 90% confident, that is one band out from our mean. So the lower interval will be equal to our mean minus our error, and our upper interval will equal our mean plus our error. And you can see that they want this rounded to 1 decimal place. And you can see that now that we have this all set up, that's the correct answer. So next we're asked to remove any outliers from the data and repeat part A. And if there aren't any outliers, we can just enter the confidence interval from part A. And this is sort of where the charts come in, because we're asked to interpret a number of charts that sort of show where the outliers are. One in particular I felt was relevant to include, and that was the box plot chart. So when a box plot has an outlier, it will actually visibly create it, essentially marking it as an outlier outside the box plot. And in this case, most of our values are clustered around the lower end of the scale, with one very high sentence. And it's hard to see in this specific case, but in your question you'll have a stem and leaf diagram which will actually tell you the exact number. But in our case, this number is our outlier, and I'm just going to highlight it for you. This number right here is our outlier, the 376 months of the prison sentence. So we're asked to remove this from the data and repeat part A. And sort of now that we actually have all this set up, we can do that quite simply. We just need to delete the outlier. So you could do a whole recalculation, but if you're in Excel, you can just select the cells and delete them. Shift the cells up, and this is going to change our average automatically. If you look at this, you now see that we're taking the average of all these cells. We don't have we're not still dividing by 20. It moves the whole calculation up. And you can see we have a new average, in this case 286.84. So because we have the question set up, all we need to do is change our values and it'll automatically do all the calculations for us, all the new ones. But there is sort of one thing we need to consider. There's sort of one thing we need to consider, and that is that we only have 19 people now. We don't need, our n has changed. Our n is now 19. So we have to be sure to change that n. If you don't change the n to 19, because you're not considering 20 people anymore, murders Georg over here is an outlier, and we shouldn't have counted him. So we're now considering 19 people with an average of 286.84. And you're going to see that we get 2 new confidence intervals. Because we've already set up all of our calculations, it'll just go through automatically, doing the exact same steps we did before to give us our new correct answers. And that's how you do this question. That's everything.